right, so I've acquired myself a US digital indicator from Andrew. Andrew has helped me get this, so huge thank you to Andrew. But we have a slight problem. It looks awesome, has the arrows, has the display, has a huge clump of wires coming out of it, but it comes to wiring it. Now, as you probably know, all of my parts either light up or they make noise. And this isn't just as simple as a normal US indicator, you know, one light per lamp and just have a switch to turn it on. It doesn't work like that, and I'll show you why. Now, this indicator uses what is called a 7-segment display to display the number. If you take a close look at it, you will notice that there are 7 separate LEDs. Lighting up each of these LEDs is really easy. You simply take the common wire and attach it to either the positive or negative of your battery, and one of these colored wires to the other end of the battery. Now, that lights up one segment, but we want to display numbers, and different numbers. Now, we could just simply slap a bunch of wires to one button, but that would only light up one number. We want to be able to light up multiple numbers. So what are our options to make this thing light up? Now, this is a digital indicator, so this thing is controlled by some sort of computer or microchip. Now, I could buy one of these microchips, and I could buy maybe like a programmable circuit board or some other things like that, but I really don't want to have to spend all this money on some fancy computerized thing. So, my solution? Let's build something! So after spending about 8 hours or so designing and building and modifying and wiring, I've built myself this contraption. That's right, this here is a custom controller for this indicator. Now, looking at this thing, it's a beast of a machine. You've got a ton of wires hanging off, a bunch of screws, some switches, an awesome looking control on the front, and some buttons. So what all is this? How did I make it, and how does it work? So essentially what this thing is an analog input for something that's a digital output. The knob has 10 different numbers you can choose from, 0 to 9, and turning the knob will select that number on the indicator. The way this works is there are 7 switches. Each switch goes to its own segment on the display. When you turn the knob to the selected number, it presses down a certain combination of switches, which activates that number on the screen. Each number has its own switch configuration. The whole thing is powered by one 9-volt battery. The buttons on the front control the 3 main parts of the indicator. The 2 buttons on the side control the directional arrows on the indicator, while the middle button turns on and off the display. So let's have a look at how I built this machine. Now, I first needed some sort of base to start with, so I decided to use this project box. This little simple small box that I got from Radio Shack back when the store was still open. I measured the length of the box and then tried to determine the size that I wanted the controller to be. Now, using those dimensions, I was able to create this model of different pieces. You can see on the left, we have the plates, the US elevator plate, along with the symbols that I use on the buttons. In the middle, we have the main part. This is the part that the rod would stick through. And this would be the base of the actual controller. Later on, I realized that I made it too long, the base, so I made this extender piece. And we have the control knob, which has all of the numbers on it. And finally, we have the big wheel, which sets with all the screws that sit on it. So after exporting each of the files and loading them into my 3D printing software, I was able to begin 3D printing the parts. Ta-da! It's all done. That was just a quick little sum up of the build process of this thing. Obviously a lot more work and thought and time and all kinds of stuff went into making this, but just in general, that's kind of how I built it. So this isn't just for show, it's actually going to be proper working and I'm going to install it. Now if you look on the back, you may have noticed that the background has changed. Some buttons have moved places. That's because we have a new shelf up here on the parts display, and we're going to get this thing hooked up and ready to go. So we're going to put the controller like right here. I like it right here. This just nice and simple. You can have the buttons here, they press nicely, and you can turn the knob. Now the indicator, I don't really want to just sit it up here because look how much wasted space this would be. If I lay this here, now I only have this much room for parts and all of this space up here is wasted. So that got me thinking, we're going to move this somewhere else. My first thought was maybe I could mount it underneath the shelf, like this. But if you notice, it kind of blocks the view of the other parts, which we really don't want that. The next thing I thought was maybe I could just sit it up on top, but then that, I don't know, that just looks kind of silly. So what I think I'm going to do for now is mount it right here. It's out of the way of the other parts and it's kind of in the middle and it'll just look cool. So to do that, we're going to need to get some pieces and we're going to have to build something to mount it to the top. So then the plan here, 2 L brackets. What we're going to do, we're going to mount these guys, one on either side to the back of the indicator. And then we're going to use these longer bolts here to kind of hang it from the shelf. We've got some really big washers here that we're going to use to kind of secure them. We're going to bolt them up there and then attach it. Now, unfortunately, this L bracket, you can see it's not quite big enough to fit the bolt. So we're going to have to fix that first. And then it's pretty much just put it together. Well, this happened. This fits through now though, so. Alright, well, this one works great, but this one kind of got a little damage in the process, so yeah, looks like we're going to be fixing that really quick. Alright, here's the shelf here, so I'm going to mount this thing, I think, like right here, which looks good. So let's mark the spot. So that one needs to go there. It's gonna go right here, just like that. So let's go ahead and put these things together. Whoa, look at this. It's all wired. Now, right now this is quite the mess of wires. I mean, who really wants to look at that? So that'll be cleaned up later, but it's done for the most part. It's wired up, so now it's time for the almighty test. So here we go, starting with the up arrow. Up arrow works. Down arrow works. And now for the numbers. So we start off with 8, we turn the knob. 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Look at that. It works. This is quite the little contraption here. So the next step, I'm going to try to cover this up maybe with some like white paper or something. Push these up here, maybe zip tie them together just to try to make this look a little bit nicer. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So let's see what it looks like when I've cleaned it up. Alright, so instead of just covering it up, I decided to just kind of hide the majority of it with this 3 braille. And I think I'm going to call it good. And I think this thing looks pretty awesome. Now once I get another part to cover this up right here, right now we kind of have the fire alarm doing that, but it'll cover this up for the most part. You'll see a little bit here, maybe I do need to cut this off, to tidy it up just a little bit more, but other than that I think it's good, and it works great. Pretty awesome. So yeah, that was the build of this pretty cool little controller for this US indicator. So I guess that'll be it.